Good morning. Welcome.
Good
Nice to have you
morning.
here this morning, one and all.
Yes, it is Sunday, November 22nd, and this is Thanksgiving week. So we are going to be talking about an attitude of gratitude today. And I was just chatting with everyone about what a different Thanksgiving it is this year in 2020. But let's begin with an opening affirmative prayer and treatment by Ernest Holmes. The attitudes of praise and thanksgiving are salutary, meaning healthy for us. They not only lighten the consciousness, lifting it out of sadness and depression, they elevate consciousness to a point of acceptance. Praise and thanksgiving are really attitudes of recognition. They are affirmations of the divine presence, the divine abundance, and the divine givingness. It's only when we live affirmatively that we're happy. It is only when we recognize that the universe is built on affirmation that we can become happy. Today, through praise and thanksgiving, I recognize the divine presence in everything. In the midst of darkness, I will sing a song to the dawn, for I know that the eternal light dissipates all darkness. Today, I recognize the beautiful and the perfect in everything. I call it forth with praise and thanksgiving, blessing the spiritual reality back of all things.
And
And
so it
so
is.
it is. There's another quote below it, and I was trying to decide whether to read it or not. It says, gratitude is one of the chief graces of human existence and is crowned in heaven with a consciousness of unity.
And again, and so it is.
And so it is. so So it's been interesting preparing for this Thanksgiving. I almost want to call it a non-holiday,
Right.
because
A near
we
holiday.
just can't get together with family and friends like we usually do. And um, and I'm glad we checked in with a lot of our people before we started here, and I'm glad everybody's honoring that recommendation for safety for everyone, because it's just not worth the consequences. So a lot of people are having Thanksgiving on Zoom, at least spending some time
It's a
together that way.
low calorie Thanksgiving on Zoom. Yeah. Pass the microphone, right?
So I was asking Bob this week about when does he feel gratitude, because he says, I'm not going to make any gratitude lists.
That's right. I've had it with list.
So let me just ask you, when do you feel grateful and
Sure.
why?
Stop bringing up the past. Well, the first thing I thought of when you asked me that, and later on I thought more about it, I want to start off with is that let's move forward a little bit so you're disappearing.
I'm disappearing.
Yeah, we gotta keep us on the camera. I thought what came to me when you asked that question was gratitude, grateful. And then I realized that what we're dealing with is a world full of greatness. And in a world of greatness, full of greatness, our job, our mission is to discover it and to keep uncovering it and to keep realizing it. And so, my process of gratitude is really the acknowledgement of what is, that if it weren't there, would be not only missing, but my life would somehow be lacking. And I think I thought of it when you said, "What are you grateful for?" And we watched a couple of falcons, a mother falcon and a baby falcon. The baby was just learning how to fly and was soaring and squealing and soaring, and the mother was sitting in the treetop, the highest treetop. And I just appreciated it with such joy. And I hadn't put it in the word gratitude, but if I had to go back and list the thing I was grateful for, I was grateful for the chance to be out and watch a bird taking flight for the first time, and the mother acknowledging it and seeing it and feeling it. So what I'm grateful for, I realize, are all of the things that are happening every day that I normally don't notice. Like, we live in a very nice condo. It's not big enough, but we live in a very nice condo, and every day I walk in, I look around, I think, I like how it looks, I like how it feels, and that's gratitude. And when I'm able to
Mhm.
be grateful, literally moment to moment, for the life that I'm seeing and the life that I'm being, that is something really very powerful, but it's also the antithesis of depression. Because when I look at depression, what depression is the inability to really observe or to absorb or to connect to the things that normally I'm grateful for. And so if I were depressed, it's happened once in 1958 for about 3 days. Yeah. All right, it's happened more often than that. But when I'm depressed, what I notice is that I stop observing the world. I stop seeing the world being full of greatness. And when I'm not able to see the great, how full it is of great, I'm unable to be happy. And so that shift, and when Judith said a list, I hate lists. But what I thought about, well, actually, the value of a list is when you begin to list the things you're grateful for, it's very difficult to be ungrateful. It's very difficult to shut down what's in front of you that is so glaringly positive and powerful. And so I thought, wow, that is a good idea. So I'm gonna make a grateful list sometime. But right now I'm
It's called a
working.
gratitude list.
Yeah, I'm working on my procrastination right now.
Well, I ask him that because the main point I'd like to make today is gratitude is not, I'm not saying that's something we should feel and I should feel, you should feel. I'm not shoulding on anybody here, but it's a tool that you can use to change the state
Mhm.
of your conscious state of your being. And so if you're down, there is nothing better than to think about and ask yourself, what am I grateful for? It will totally change your feeling state. And you'll go from feeling sorry for yourself to, boy, am I fortunate, and what a wonderful tool that is. But it's a tool that's just one of the many tools that we use. But one of my teachers or readers or channels that I read or something said of human beings that we are far too lenient with our minds. We say that again. We are far too lenient with our minds. We let them go in any direction they want, and we think we have no control of it, when in fact we're the only ones who can control it.
Have you ever noticed that in the house, it's at least in our house, that from time to time something gets dropped someplace and then something else gets placed someplace and then some dirt accumulates on the way to the bathroom that you notice on the floor near the sideboard or the floorboards and it accumulates and it accumulates. But as long as you can get from point A to point B and you can find the thing on the coffee table and you can find the remote, it isn't as if you need to do anything. And really what you're talking about is a kind of house cleaning. You're
Yes,
saying, really what happens is in our lack of accountability or a lack of attention to our mind, we let it track in a lot of dirt, a lot of stuff that doesn't belong there, a lot of stuff we don't want to have. And as long as we're not willing to tend to our mind, then we can't attend to the things that we'd like to attend to that mind can give us, that mind opens us to. Every now and then we have a beautiful TV. I love this. I love this, the image of it and all of that. But every now and then I have to get the Windex out and clean the screen. And I think what you're really suggesting is every now and then we have to clean mind. And if we clean mind, which is the determination and the intention to use it differently or to have clear sight, it's a very different experience.
exactly. And for example, most people think, and I used to think, that you have no control over what your mind is, what you're hearing your mind say all the time. It just happens, and our emotions just happen. And what we learned is that no, actually, you can choose how you think and how you think about something. You can shift from doing what most of the time we do, which is we look at the most pressing problem in our life and spend most of our time thinking about that. And I believe the purpose of that is to try to come up with solutions to make it better or fix it. And that part is positive. But we can just end up dwelling on the negative. I mean, most
Mhm.
of us do. We 90% of our life is great, and there's that 10%, that just bugs us and we think about all the time and bring ourselves down. So what I learned in Science of Mind is that no, you are the only thinker in your mind, and you can decide what to think about. So that is very helpful in any problem that you have, any problem that I have. I acknowledge the problem And then I go to visualizing and thinking about the most optimum outcome for it. Today I was thinking about the pandemic. And of course, we're sad for Thanksgiving that we can't do what we usually do in community with people. And yet I started thinking, what are all the benefits of this pandemic? There will be wonderful
Mhm.
benefits of this time because it was a huge shift that we all had to do. I think all this Zooming and the availability of things that were not available on for everyone to see in their home will continue and will be a good thing. I think that the people working from home that thought they had to do long commutes into the downtown city will continue and will be a positive thing.
I think that there's a space between engaging in the positive and being negative, and that's a very precarious space, and I call it the space of neutral. And that space is a space we occupy a lot more often than we realize. An example of that, and maybe this has happened to you, it certainly happened to me, is I'll go through the channels and I'll see a movie, and I'll click on the movie and I'll start watching it, but I'm not there yet. I'm still on neutral. I'm still assessing and deciding if I really want to engage or not. And then if fortunately something happens in the movie that grabs my attention or grabs or makes me forget that I'm on neutral, I can go from negative, neutral to, oh my God, this looks like it's going to be worth watching. A lot of what I find worth watching happens after I am willing to decide that life is worth watching. And in
Hmm.
that space of neutral, we're not watching, we're not observing, we're not experiencing. And often we're headed in the direction of, there's just nothing to see. There's just nothing very good happening. And sometimes that's a reaction to hurt or pain or struggle. I know when my son was born, shortly after he was born, I was watching a movie and the movie had a child being kidnapped. I couldn't watch it. I have never been unable to watch a movie about a child being kidnapped until I had one. And at that point, I couldn't watch that because it stimulated too much. So sometimes what we're doing in order to avoid having the wrong things turned on is we're turning ourselves so completely off that we don't realize we're not on to life. We're not engaged in life any longer. And that's what you're talking about, is that crossing that bridge from sadness sometimes or indifference or neutral into being engaged. And since I'm on the movie theme, we watched the first three episodes of
The
season
Crown.
season four of The Crown, and it was luscious. It was delicious. When I say that, it was luscious and delicious because the acting, the staging,
There was no food.
there was no that's
Luscious and delicious,
that's a
but there was no
that's a
food.
disappointment. But the orchestration behind it, the timing, I thought, oh my God, it's so rich. But there would be times when I would have gone through and said, I don't know if I'm up for that kind of a movie or not. How many times have you said, I don't know if I'm up for living that much today or not?
Mhm.
Let's just put it on pause for a little while, take a break and see how that feels. Doesn't feel very good. There's got to be something better than this. And it's our inability to say yes at a time when we really need to, and sometimes don't feel safe enough or want to.
Well, another thing we do, I don't, and I've participated in this. I don't know how many times I've condemned this year, like everything is going wrong this year, and I hear everybody doing that. But if we were to look for what are the benefits, what can we be grateful for about this year? I found this. I think I shared it at the beginning of the pandemic. It's by Bill Gates, but I put a question mark by that because I don't know where my source was. But at any rate, I like it. So it says that what is the coronavirus really teaching us? And number one, it says there are, by the way, seven or eight things to be grateful for. It's reminding us that we're all equal, because the coronavirus has no
It's an
favorites.
equal opportunity to disease.
Yeah. And it reminds us that we're all connected to each other, and something that affects one person affects others and one another. It reminds us how precious our health is, and it reminds us of the shortness of life, and that what the most important thing that is for us to do is to help each other, especially those who are old or sick. It also says our purpose is not to buy toilet paper.
Not to buy too much toilet paper. Please buy
Buy
some.
some.
Yeah, yeah. Let's
It-
keep it clean.
It's reminding us of how materialistic our society has become, and how in times of difficulty we remember uh, that it's the essentials that we need: food, water, medicine, as opposed to the luxuries that we surround ourselves with but are unnecessary. It reminds us of how important our family and home life is, and how much we may have neglected this. It reminds us that our true work is not our job. That's what we do, but it's not what we were created to do. Our true work is to look after each other, to protect each other, and to be of benefit to one another. So I thought that was a wonderful reminder of
Yeah,
to be grateful for this year and what it's giving us.
he's really talking about being aware of and being present for living in the moment and making no assumption that you can do it later, that you can put it off until later, that he's saying that we need to be living now, not later, and not yesterday. I have a lot of people around me who are reliving their yesterdays. I have a lot of people that I know that are worried about living tomorrow, and both impede on living today. Judith is famous for saying it's a nice day outside. Why don't we go walk on the beach? And what always impresses me when she says that is how much I like walking on the beach and how I have to think about whether I want to do it or not. And because there's a lot of other things I could be doing, practical things, necessary things, valuable things, and what I thought about the last time she asked me that, I thought, well, if I were to die tomorrow, what would I say? What I would say, I feel so good about that last 5 minutes I spent on Facebook. That was so valuable. Or would I say, I walked on the beach and I connected to the heaven on earth just before I got to the heaven wherever I'm being, taken or going to go to, assuming that that's an option. But I thought how easily we displace what's valuable for not only what's not valuable, but for what's mundane and even that we don't like. You know, so we went for a walk on the beach.
And we loved it. Ojibwe Indians have a saying, I love this. Sometimes I go about pitying myself when all the while I'm being carried by great winds across the sky. And we are. So it's so wonderful to just stop and think while we're busy complaining. And I'm including myself with that. Um, there's a lot to celebrate, a lot to a lot to do with this time, a lot of going within. Have you seen? Oh my gosh, my email is just unbelievably full of all the world's greatest teachers offering
Mhm.
seminars and
Workshops.
meditation things and workshops and meditation and more meditation, which is great. And they're making it very reasonable or free. It's amazing what's being offered. So that's a good thing.
The famous psychiatrist who wrote A Man in Search of Meaning,
Viktor
Viktor
Frankl.
Frankl. One of the lessons that I learned from him in his material was he discovered that the people who shared what little food they had with other people lived longer than the people they shared it with.
Hmm.
When you believe you're operating on empty, you are far more empty than you realize. When you realize that you may feel empty, but that you're not, that there is enough to share, enough to spare, life is very different and there is less despair.
Oh, I think that rhymed.
I just thought of that. You'd think I was a writer. Yeah. But I think it's important for us to think about, and for some people, this pandemic is like living in a concentration camp. And I guess
Mhm.
what you can do is you can focus on the walls that are way too close to you and the limitations that are so uncomfortably imposed and the difficulties and the struggles that are so obvious and apparent. Or you can say, I have enough to give and enough to share. I can look into the eyes of another person and I can see the beloved. I can look
Mhm.
into the heart of another person and I can see a heart that's bigger than the place I'm living. And that's up to us to decide that we want to do that, that we're willing to do that. You get to live in whatever concentration camp you want to. I think the
Mm,
big wake up for me is that being in this pandemic has made me aware of how I have lived in many ways in a concentration camp disguised as a nice daily life. And when I no
mm,
longer have the nice daily life, which is a disguise, I have to start searching for the real inner
mm.
life. I have to start searching for what is it that has meaning and value for me, which was what I've been doing. And I think what it's done is it's brought me much closer to the nature I discovered as a child. And that same nature is a teacher that says to me, there's not only enough to see and to experience, there's enough to share. Enough, you have enough. You are enough. And I think we are often just we've decorated the prison well enough that we forget that we've made ourselves a prison.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
we
that's a
have to
good
be
point.
willing to say, am I a prisoner of my own making? And even though I like, because I hired a good designer or a decorator, do I like the prison of my making? And I'm going off on a bit of an aside on this, but I was at a person's home some time ago, beautiful home, a multi-million dollar home. They hired a multi-million dollar decorator, and they spent a multi-million dollar amount of money decorating the house, and everything in it was so perfect. And I said, tell me, this is so beautiful. What in this house is a reflection of you? And she said, I don't know. I hired a decorator. I don't have anything of me in the house. It's just, we do a lot of entertaining. We have a lot of people here. We needed to have this place look like it looks. And I said, so is there any part of you in this house that is so important? She said, I don't think so. And I was also working with her on depression.
Mm, mm.
And she had no clue why she might be depressed. So I think it's worth
That's a good example of building
building a
a
wonderful and
life that's a
beautiful prison,
box.
just a
Yeah.
perfect prison. Yeah. But we can disguise the prison that we live in by saying, well, I do good things. I feel good. I have good thoughts. Have you looked in the mirror and seen who's looking back at you and said, I love you? Have you looked in the mirror and said, we could be together for all of time and I'd be fine with that? Or have you looked in the mirror and said, I used to be somebody, or maybe I will be somebody, or maybe there's somebody that I can look at later, but not now. It's uncomfortable. And I think we need to be able to look in the mirror and say, I love you. And I love all the people I see in the mirror. And that mirror is, of course, us. So,
Thank you. That was great. Um, you know that the most interesting and happiest people I've met are Tibetan monks. I've had the good fortune of speaking to and hearing a number of them at our conferences, and some have come to our one of our centers that we served. And it was always so striking that they are always so happy. Now, these are people who have nothing, who've been run out of their country. They live in a part of India that allows them to live there, but they've lost their home and they would like to go back, but they don't dwell on that. They are also the greatest teachers of compassion, and it's not something that they say, "Oh well, we should have more compassion." They practice compassion. They practice with their prayers, with their songs, with their activities, and because it's something that can grow when you choose to learn compassion for other people, because your empathy can enlarge. It is something that gets larger, and the same is true, I would posit, for gratitude. That it's a habit that you can learn, you can practice it, and that's where the gratitude lists come in. And I know this for myself. I never would have thought of it or believed it, but I was at a period in my life where I had just lost a business that I wasn't ready to lose, and I was depressed and angry about that. And I started a program of meditation and journaling and stuff. And part of that practice was I was to write 5 things I was grateful for every night before going to sleep. And I did that just because I was supposed to, like a good girl. But what I noticed is that it started lifting me out of the depression that I was in. And so I was just amazed at the power of it. And so it's actually a practice that I do now. Every time I go to sleep, I think of 5 things that I'm grateful for. And it just, normally I would be going to sleep worrying about the biggest problem in my life or trying to see the opposite of that, which I also do. And, or seeing like if someone's ill, see them well. If there's a lack of income or prosperity for someone, see that fulfilled, see them enjoying abundance. And so, but the gratitude list is a great practice because it just makes you feel all warm and fuzzy and good inside. Uh,
We don't need as much as we think we do to be grateful. I was looking at a video recently, and the person that was dancing in the video was asked, "What did you require? What did you have to do?" And she said, "Well, we hired a choreographer. We hired 25 dancers. We practiced and rehearsed. We had an orchestra behind us. We had people write the music, and there were close to 150 people involved in creating this video that you're looking at of this dance sequence that lasted less than 4 minutes.
uh,
And it was an incredible piece of work. There's no doubt about it. But I also happen to have recently watched a National Geographic program where I watched 25 Africans in Africa dancing the most astounding dance with no music, with no one orchestrating, with no stage sets, and with no lighting. And there was every bit as much magic and drama and beauty and magnificence in that dance as I've ever seen. And I guess we can dance with or without an orchestra. We can dance with or without a choreographer. We can be our own choreographer and we can create our own dance. And when we do that, we have a dance that is unequaled by anything else.
so I think in closing, I want to close with a, a statement made by Meister Eckhart. Meister Eckhart was a priest in around the 1200s in Germany, and he was really a New Thought person way before his time, and believed God was in all of us, and said so. And but so does the New Testament. It says that also. But he said, if you never say another prayer in your entire life other than this one, thank you, God, that will suffice. That will suffice. That's a prayer. Thank you, God. And so that's our main lesson today. So let's remember it through this week and the rest of this year and
You don't
next year.
you don't need to
Nothing's going to change automatically December 31st.
you don't have to
It's
hire an
still,
author or a choreographer to write that prayer.
no.
You can dance that prayer in your heart and in your soul. And when you're dancing, also remember us, cslpalmbeaches.org. This is where you send the huge checks, money orders,
No, they can't send checks
Zoom.
to that website. They have to click the donate button.
This is where you go to click the donate button to send the huge amounts of overflow that you have. Well, just imagine, and I would like you to do this. Imagine that if you send us $5, $10, or $100, that you add at least 5 or 6 zeros to that in your mind and in your heart, and know that that's the gift you gave to us and that we appreciated it that much.
Very good. So shall we close
Yes, let's close.
with a thank you, God prayer?
Thank you, God. Thank you, God, for all that you have unveiled for us to see, for the spectacular and wondrous show that we have before us, for the dance that we get to dance, for the words we get to speak, for the heart that we get to open and share and be so connected to, for all that we are, all that we hope and want and wish to be, all that we desire and all that we require, all unfolding within this very moment that we live. Thank you for this spectacular experience that we are allowed and to have and to share. There is nothing greater than this life that we are living, and we know and love and accept and say thank you for that. Our gratitude for all that is and all that is happening for and within us is so much greater than we can even begin to state. That all we can do is smile from the inside and say thank you. And we know this is so, and together we say, and so it is.
So it
For
is.
those of you that are with us on Zoom, we're going to continue after we sign off and look forward to talking to all of you.